Well, thank you, everybody. I'm sorry I was running late. My name is Doug Sillers, and I'm traveling around Europe with my family, and we were on a long road to get here today, and we ended up getting stuck in traffic and having to. We're traveling with 4 small kids, so it takes a lot longer sometimes than we had planned to have it take. But I've been traveling around Europe with my family. I'm a digital nomad. And I was in Dustin, and I found Martin, and he said he would put together a meetup, and so here we are, and so that's really exciting, and so thank you all for coming out. I'm going to talk about how to deliver fast and beautiful images to the website. And so a little bit about me. I've been traveling with my family. The first year we were traveling, I was working for AT&T in America, and then they told me that I couldn't travel internationally anymore and still work for AT&T, and so now I freelance. Because my family still wanted to travel. So I help companies and developers build faster websites, faster native apps, because basically if a website or an app is slow, people stop coming back to it. They abandon it, they don't come back. If they do purchase things, they don't purchase as much stuff. So like faster is usually better. I do workshops on performance, images, video, augmented reality in the browser, which is actually really cool. I wrote a book for O'Reilly on Android apps. If you have anyone interested in Android app development, that's the PDF. I'll post the slides up on the Meetup page. And then I'm Doug Sillers. I'm the only Doug Sillers on the internet, so I'm pretty easy to find. And so, how many of you, when you look at this walkway that's nailed to the side of an Alp in Switzerland, you get a little nervous thinking about walking across it? Anyone? A few hands, right? We walked across this as a family, and my daughter, who's 9 now, she was 6, and she jumped across it, so it rattled as we walked across, which added a little bit more effect to it. But a few years ago, Ericsson did a study, and in this study, they put sensors on people's heads to measure stress responses to different things. And they found that waiting in a queue raises your stress anxiety a little bit. They found that thinking about walking on the edge of a cliff raises your stress and anxiety a little bit. But they found that a slow mobile website is actually more stressful than standing on the edge of a cliff. And so that feeling you all had about a minute ago, thinking about standing on the edge of a cliff, that's what your customers are feeling when a website is slow, and that's not what we want them to feel, right? If you go to a shopping mall, it's always bright lights, happy music, because if you're happy or you're in a good mood, you're going to stay longer, you're going to buy more stuff. Same idea with the website. If they're coming in frustrated, it's not the right view. There's a lot of data on this. Google found that a 3-second delay causes 53% of mobile users to abandon. Half-second delay increases frustration and lowers engagement. 20 years ago, Amazon and Walmart found that 100 milliseconds delay actually dropped their revenue by 1%. Independently, they both found that. But 4% of mobile users admit to throwing their phones when it's a slow load. So there are all these great studies, and they're fun to share. But what can we do to speed up the web? And so this is from April of this year, 10,000 random websites, and the percent of images. So I don't know if you can see it, but the yellow is JavaScript, the red is CSS, but images, I mean, if you look, we're talking 35 to 80% of the tonnage on your web page is images. And so if you can make the images smaller, you're going to delay the site faster, right? It doesn't take as long to download. So we're going to walk through the different ways that you can speed up the image delivery without affecting the quality of the images. Anyone here use Lighthouse? A few hands, a lot of hands, awesome. So for those who don't know, Lighthouse is a tool that audits your web page to see how you can make it run better on mobile. And you can do it in Chrome Dev Tools, it's inside Web Page Test, which I'll talk about in a second. But inside Lighthouse, there's 4 image optimizations: quality, format, sizing, and lazy loading. And you get a score from 0 to 100. 100 is good, 0 is bad. And so what's cool is Web Page Test. Any Web Page Test fans here? A few hands. But when you want to test the performance of your web page, webpagetest.org is an awesome site. You just type in the URL of your web page. You can test it at sites all around the world, so you can see how fast it is in Germany or the States or Singapore or wherever you want to see, and it'll load it on actual devices. The There's another tool called the HTTP archive that's built on top of web page test. And basically, web page test runs a lighthouse test every time you test a page. And the HTTP archive tests 5 million pages every month with these tools and throws it all into a database. So you can actually see what the web is built of today because there's this giant database that you can run queries on and find out what's in there. And so that's what I did. And when I ran this, there were only 500,000 data points in there, but 500,000 websites. We're going to look at how 500,000 websites are dealing with quality, format, sizing, and loading. Lighthouse recommends that you save all your images at 85% quality. So when you're in Photoshop, you can lower that quality. There's a slider, and as you lower the quality, obviously you're removing pixels, so it doesn't look as nice. But they did a big study, Google did, and they found that 85% is good enough for the web. Generally, no one can tell the difference. And so you can use Image Magic to turn your image, you can say quality to 85 to your Riga JPEG, and you get saved a Riga 85 JPEG. It's that easy. If you want to use a cloud-based tool, you can use Cloudinary or a tool like that. You upload the full-size image, it gives you a URL, and then you can just add the term Q85 in there, and it generates a quality 85 image for you, just on the fly. So that's really cool. So here's that picture of Riga, 3.6 megabytes. And when I save it at 85%, you can't tell the difference, but it's half the size, 1.87 megabytes. So huge savings, no one can tell the difference. It's pretty straightforward. So let's look to see what we found in the HTTP archive. We actually found that 43% of the web is doing this right, saving your images at least 85% quality, but 33% of the internet is not. And so that means that 1/3 of the internet is not optimizing images, they're too large. Lighthouse also tells you how much faster you'll be, but I wanted to see how much faster it'd be for these sites that are failing. And basically, the median website that's failing on a 3G connection would be 2.8 seconds faster and use 420K less data. That's a lot, right? If you can make your web page three seconds faster just by optimizing the images, that's a pretty straightforward thing to do. But what if you wanted to go further? What if you went 50%? And you can sort of see there's some, you can see the pixelization up in the sky. This projector is pretty good, so that's awesome. Sometimes you can't see that, so I always bring out a 20% where you can definitely see that it looks like crap. You don't want to serve images like this on the web, but where's that sweet spot between 85 and 50? And luckily there are tools that will help us find that. We know that there's a sweet spot in between here where the image still looks great to the human eye, but will be smaller. There's two algorithms that are out there. One is Booter-Algely, and the other one is called structural similarity. And what this does is it lowers the quality until the human eye can tell the difference. And so there's an open source tool here, the link is there, or like Cloudinary, you just set it to Q Auto, and it'll generate a 1.46 megabyte image. And it's the same quality as far as our eyes can tell as the 85%, except for it's 400 kilobytes lighter. So, I mean, obviously 400 kilobytes lighter is going to get delivered faster to your customers. So it's worthwhile looking into this. And so that's what it looks like. So I threw those into web page test. And so web page test lets you test devices. I often test in Dulles, Virginia, because they actually have real devices there. They have real iOS devices, they have real Android devices. I tend to test on the Motorola G4, because it's sort of like a mid-range device. But you can see the full-size image takes 21.7 seconds to download. When I do structural similarity, it's down to 9.5 seconds. From 3.7 megabytes to 1.5 megabytes, right? That's a huge savings. We're really speeding up the delivery of this web page. Next thing we can do is look at optimizing the format. And let's talk about some of the different image formats that are used on the web a lot. This is, again, HTTP archive, average size of JPEGs, GIFs, PNGs, etc. SVGs are vector graphics, and they're really cool because they're images drawn as shapes. And because they're shapes in an XML document, you can stretch them as much as you want, and they look great. So this Twitter icon is an SVG. I can stretch it, and it looks awesome no matter what size. If you see pixels here, it's because PowerPoint doesn't support SVGs, and I had to put JPEG screenshots. Anyway, the web supports SVGs, so you don't have to worry about that. But you can still screw up SVGs. I mean, they're XML files, so they're pretty straightforward. But I found a web page that has this sort of Target logo on it. And I opened it up because it's XML. And you can see the circles, right? And then you see Adobe Illustrator, C data, like that. And so you can see where my cursor is on line 30. I clicked there, dragged to the end, deleted, resaved the file, and it went from 946 kilobytes to 1. This just sort of goes to, like, maybe you should test stuff, like, before you push it. I mean, that's sort of a, you should catch that sort of thing. This is still live. I checked about 2 weeks ago. But it's XML, so you could gzip it, you could Brotli it, and it's like half a kilobyte. Or almost 1 megabyte for the exact same content. Same web page has an orange target. Yeah, they sent down 946 twice, so 1.8 megabytes of circles. As you probably know, you can take an SVG and you can style it. So I can just saturate the color and turn the red one orange. So I could have done 500, 600 bytes of SVG, 2 lines of CSS, and like I have 2 logos. Or you can go 1.8 megabytes. It's pretty easy to do this the right way if you're paying attention. PNGs are great if you need a transparent image, right? PNGs have an alpha channel that can be transparent. However, many of the PNGs that I find on the internet have this sort of file name to them. And so if you recognize that file name, that means they had the image all set up perfectly in Photoshop and then they took a screenshot with their Mac. 2018, 12/17 at 9:44 a.m. This is not the optimal way to put stuff up on the internet, right? The screenshot tool is awesome. Like, that tweet that I have there is a screenshot of my tweet, right? Yes, the screenshot tool is awesome, but you should optimize that image before you put it live. You can actually see they did some processing because there's like there's some numbers afterwards, but they didn't actually resize the image. And so there's like 400,000 of these on the internet. I just looked in April of this year. 2% of the websites that were tested have a screenshot type image on their site. I took 10,000 of them. I wanted to see how much smaller I could make them just by changing the format to JPEG and doing the changing the quality to auto. 86% of them were at least 50% smaller, right? So taking a screenshot is awesome, but you should then make sure that you're making it small and optimized for the web. 35% of them got 90% smaller. That's a really easy way to make these images, take up a lot less space, get downloaded faster over the network. Not everybody's on a fast network connection, and we should realize that and make sure our images are optimized for that. WebP is another great format, and I bring up WebP because it's now supported in Edge, it's supported in Firefox, it's in Chrome, it's in Android for Chrome Android. Safari's thinking about adding it, it's under investigation. But we've got 3 of the major 4 modern browsers. When I took this screenshot, it was 72% of all users can support WebP. That might be worthwhile looking at because WebP is a format based on the VP8 video format. And they're a lot smaller, right? The average size is half the size, approximately, of a JPEG. And when I take that image that was 1.4 something megabytes, and I save it as a WebP, it's under 1 megabyte. So I saved another 400 or 500 kilobytes just by turning this into a WebP. Same quality, no one can tell the difference, it still looks great. And when I load it, it goes from 9.4 seconds to 7 seconds. I turned up another 2.5 seconds of load time. If you're worried about supporting all the other browsers, you still have IE6 users. Hopefully you don't still have IE6. Does anyone still support IE6 here? Anyone? Does anyone remember those days? Yeah, right, okay, so a lot of hands there. All right, but you can use the picture tag to serve the WebP. If the browser doesn't know what to do with WebP, it'll fall back to the JPEG, and of course you should always have an alt tag for accessibility. If we look, the HTTP archive data is all being run on Android devices, so it's Chrome, so we're looking for WebP. And when I ran this study, 2/3 of the internet were not doing this. They were just serving JPEGs, PNGs, GIFs, whatever. The median web page would be 4.1 seconds faster and use 600K less data. That's, again, a pretty easy way to speed up your web page just by switching the image format. And maybe you don't have to do it for all the images, but maybe for the largest images, like the hero images, the things that actually use a lot of data, think about looking at changing that image format for those images. Image sizing, this is sort of, again, one that's pretty common, is sort of that mobile first idea. You serve a different size image to a mobile device than you do your desktop. The example here is I take this image of a cathedral. It's 13 megapixels. The original file was 1.6 megabytes. I do structural similarity. I save it as a WebP. It's now 800K, but it's still 13 megapixels. And of course, when you serve that to a mobile device, it only needs 500,000 pixels, and so 12.5 million pixels that were downloaded are thrown away by the device before they're never used. There are obviously disadvantages to this. Obviously, you have to wait for all of that to download for the CPU to fire up to throw away 95% of the data. The best analogy I can come is when you order something from Amazon and you get a giant box on your front door and it's like full of bubble wrap or brown paper, and there's like a pencil in the bottom of the box, right? We're doing this with images, and we shouldn't be doing this with images because it's just wasteful. To make things worse, I actually ran this as a study. I have this 16 megapixel image. It's 1 megapixel on the device. I did it on a 3G connection, so it took a long time to download, 14 seconds to download on both desktop, the Moto G4, and the Alcatel One X. The image decoding, to get that to throw away all those pixels, on the desktop was really fast, under 100 milliseconds. On the Motorola G4, it took 200 milliseconds. But the Alcatel One X, which is a device from last year, it's an Android Go device, it took 820 milliseconds for it to decode. So that's more delay before the image shows up on the screen. It's also probably, it's firing up the CPU, it's probably draining the battery, the phone's heating up because it's draining the battery so much, right? It's something that people will notice. The Alcatel One X is an Android Go device, and they're really, really cheap. They're like 50, 60 euros. And so while a lot of people don't have them, it's a really great budget device. So there will be people out there buying these devices because they're cheap. The number 2 market for Android Go is the United States. So like, there's gonna be a lot of these devices in use by people who are probably using your website. The review for the Alcatel One X actually says you're gonna have awesome battery life because you're gonna hate using your phone. And so your battery life lasts a lot longer. There are a lot of different devices out there. These are Android devices that hit Akamai in 1 day. Green is the speed of the processor, so green is fast, red is slow. These all have different size screens, right? These are all Samsungs because they're green and fast and have a huge market share. So what do? You have to generate different size images, obviously, for different devices. In this example, I have 25 kilobyte different in size, and I've generated 20 different images. And so when I load it up with this theoretical tiny device, I only throw away 100,000 pixels. You know, it's going to take some time, but it's not 12.5 million pixel time. It's going to be pretty fast. I use the responsive breakpoint generator. There are a lot of tools that will do this for you. This one has a, you can obviously use it from GitHub as on your back end. You can use the web interface, which is what I use, because it was just one example. Images between 200 pixels wide to 1400 pixels wide, 25 kilobytes apart. It gave me a list of images. It gave me the code to just paste into the website, and it loads the right size image. Now when I load that same image on a Motorola G4, it only takes 2 seconds, and the file's only 120 kilobytes. Right, 120 kilobytes, that's pretty reasonable for an image. It's going to download fast on a mobile connection. It's going to be a much better user experience for your end users. So optimizing for the size of the screen is super important. And this is mobile first, right? You want to make sure that our web page loads well on mobile. 57% of the internet is passing, but 22% is completely failing. That 22% that's completely failing, the median web page would be 2.7 seconds faster, 400K less data, right? By doing these optimizations, you will speed up your web page. The last of the ones from Lighthouse is lazy loading. And so what is lazy loading? Lazy loading is the idea you only show the stuff that's in the viewport on initial load. So instead of loading 6 images on load, you only load 2. And obviously, then you have some JavaScript, intersection observer, whatever, that has those ones load up when you scroll. But by only loading 2 images at the initial load of the page, it's going to render a lot faster, and your customers will have a better experience. Lazy loading in the wild, 60% are failing. Those that are failing would be 3.5 seconds faster, 500 kilobytes less data. Now what's interesting, and I haven't tested this yet, so one way that people do lazy loading is with preview images. And so this is Google image search. You get a green placeholder image for the cat dressed up like a dinosaur. You get a purple for the cat dressed up like a princess. I don't know. Right? So you know that the image is coming because there's this like solid color SVG in its place. And Medium does this, Facebook does this, skeleton images. There's a lot of people who are into skeleton frameworks like this. I like this tool. It's called Squib, and it generates an SVG. Instead of just one color, it's sort of got the texture of the waterfall, so it's a little bit nicer looking. So what's cool is in Chrome 75, this was gonna launch in Chrome 75, and I actually haven't tested it. I've been on the road this week. I think, did 75 come out this past week? It did. Is the lazy loading in it? It is, so I haven't tested it yet. I had a bug open, I haven't seen if they fixed it. So I'll have to check it out. But we'll just show you what lazy loading looks like. This is a web page I built. This is the desktop version. You can see each viewport on my computer with the red line. And when you load this in Chrome 74, not so much in Chrome 75, you can see that the text, well, you can't see the text, but the text is constantly reflowing. The images are loading in sort of a weird order. If you look at number 4, you can see there's a cow about halfway down, but the images up at the top of the screen haven't loaded yet. So the images are loading sort of in a random order, not the order that you actually browse the website with. Now in Chrome 75, this is what happens. At the very beginning, Chrome grabs the first 2 kilobytes of every image. And in the first 2 kilobytes of every image, it knows the dimensions of each image and where it's going to be on the page. And so it can actually you can see by number 3, the entire page is laid out. I've got placeholder images, they're all SVGs. The entire page is laid out, and then you can see that the images are loading from top to bottom in order, right? The cow only loads as you're scrolling down the page. This makes a lot more sense, and it's really cool that this is in the browser. It should speed up the load of web pages because the images at the top of the page are going to render first, and that makes a lot of sense. The bug that I had actually was for images sort of right here, they were getting downloaded twice. So it'll be interesting. I'll have to go and check. Maybe not tonight, but maybe tomorrow I'll check to see if those are still downloading twice. I assume they fixed that because that could be a huge performance issue. But this is really exciting that it's in the browser. And it's really cool that it's in Chrome, but hopefully it'll come to other browsers as well. In the meantime, there are JavaScript libraries that will do this for Safari and all your other browsers. And most of those libraries are playing well with Chrome. So they'll let Chrome do it instead of using the JavaScript. So that's smart. Animated GIFs. Who loves animated GIFs? All right, this is Nora the goat back in Seattle. Took the movie with my phone. I made her into a GIF. She's eating a cedar leaf. It became 270% larger when we turned it into a GIF. And if you go back to 1990, the GIF spec says the GIF format is not intended as a platform for animation, even though it can be done in a limited way. So like the people who designed GIFs said we shouldn't use animated GIFs. And the reason for that is the animated GIFs are literally, if you have 30 frames per second, it's literally 30 GIFs that is just flipping through really, really fast. There's no compression through the dimension of time. So what you should do is turn it into a movie. And so this is a movie of Nora, 256 colors, because GIFs are from the 80s. And I stripped out the audio track. Why did I strip out the audio track? Because GIFs are silent. Number one, the sound of a goat eating a leaf is rather unappetizing, but GIFs are silent. So if you remove it, you've made the file even smaller. And so this is the way you should serve GIFs. And you may be wondering about, like, Twitter has GIFs. And for those in the back, it says GIF in the corner. They're lying. If you open up in DevTools, it's an MP4. So it's like GIF the medium, not GIF the format. And if you look, it's sort of off the side of the screen, but the movie is 400K. And so why is Twitter using it? It's 400K, and this is an animated GIF would be like several megabytes. So obviously that's going to speed up Twitter. Facebook's doing it, Slack's doing it. They're all getting converted to movies on the back end and served as movies because it's just faster. Yeah.
And what about autoplay?
Look at that. Thank you so much. Okay, so the way you make a video autoplay is you set autoplay. Loop autoplay, you have to set it to muted as well. And the reason you have to set it to muted is that both mobile Chrome and mobile Safari won't autoplay movies on your phone unless they're muted. And I think that's because Chrome and Safari engineers sit in meetings too, so they get bored, right? You don't want the video to blast that you're not paying attention to the meeting. We've all done it. I know we've all done it. Plays in line is for iOS. So this is how you make it play on a web page. Autoplay. I found a website that had a video on the front page, and they forgot to put in the autoplay, so it downloaded the entire movie. They also omitted the controls feature, so you couldn't stop it. So it was just a video on the home page that looked like a picture, but it was like 7 megabytes. Don't do that. Another cool thing you can do with looping videos is in Safari, you can actually put MP4s in the picture tag and they'll play. So if you loop a video in the picture tag, it'll work. You can then fall back to an animated WebP for Chrome, and then everybody else gets the animated GIF. You know, you should just go to video because the animated GIF is 3.8 megabytes, 22 seconds on a 3G connection, where an animated WebP is 18 seconds, 3 megabytes, whereas the video is 4.5 seconds, 250K, right? It's sort of a no-brainer here. The video is going to be so much faster than the animated GIF. Finally, what are your customers saying? Have any of you heard of the save data header? Anyone? All right, so I see some nods. All right, so in Chrome, you can turn on data saver mode, and what that does is anything that's HTTP, Google will proxy it and optimize all the images and everything. If it's HTTPS, it just goes through full size, they don't care. But it turns on this header that says save data equals on. And so now your server is getting information from your customers saying, hey, I don't want lots of images and videos. Don't give them to me. And this was from October of last year, but this guy found that 5% of his users had this turned on. If 5% of your customers are saying, send me fewer images, send me fewer videos, that'll actually speed up the page, right? So it's sort of, if you can make it still look good and be exactly what you want, that makes sense. So this tool from Cloudinary automatically cuts down the quality of your images. If they see the save data, it goes from the auto quality, the structural similarity to like a more aggressive version. And in this case, it saves another 45 kilobytes. So you could do the same thing with your webpage. Maybe cut out images, maybe don't display the videos because they're saying, I don't want it. The network info API is kind of the same deal. I got the chance to spend a month as part of our traveling in rural Ireland. And our Airbnb said, high-speed Wi-Fi, which is great because I'm freelancing and I need that internet. What it didn't say was connected to a 3G router on edge. So that entire month, I saw no videos on Facebook. I saw no animated GIFs in Twitter because they're using the Navigator connection downlink. They're measuring the speed of my network connection. And they know if the video isn't going to play, I'm going to get frustrated and stop going back to Facebook or to Twitter or to whatever. And so they hid them from my timeline. It also tells you what type of connection, what the latency is, the round trip time, what the maximum download speed is. So if you can measure these things and you know that your customer's on a crappy connection, maybe you hide the videos, maybe you downsize the images for them so that the page will load faster. It's just something to think about. So in conclusion, we can optimize our images. We can optimize the quality, the format, we can resize them, we can lazy load them, we can turn our animated GIFs into movies. You should never base in 64 encode images. That was a thing like for HTTP1 when you wanted to lower the number of requests, but base 64 encoded images are larger. It screws up all your caching because all of a sudden now your images are in your HTML page and you change your HTML, you have to re-download all the images again. And you should monitor your customers' headers, right? If they're saying send me less stuff, send them less stuff. Those are some of the tools I use for the talk: web page test, HTTP archive, image magic, structural similarity, responsive breakpoints, cloudinary. I'll put this slide back up, but images can be beautiful and fast. And if you're into this sort of thing and you're really interested in optimizing images, there's some great, Cloudinary has a media developer expert program. And if you're interested, you can email them and learn more. They give you lots of extras and training on how to optimize images. So if you're interested, send them an email. But in the meantime, check all this stuff out and I'd be happy to take any questions.
What about graphics magic? There was this fork, I think 10 years ago or 15 years ago, from image magic to graphics magic. Have you experienced with that?
I haven't played with both of them. I've only played with image magic.
Okay.
I don't know graphics magic. What's the difference? Do you use the other one?
They have different, nearly it's the same API. It was a spin-off because there was some, I don't know what was the reason, but I was playing with it at the beginning of the year, and Graphic Magic seems a little bit more faster. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I'll take a look at it. I've never.
But I'm not really sure. There's some API, for example, we're using it in Java. The API, including it in Java, is not that well like this for image magic.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that it had gone into
some kind of MariaDB and MySQL same stuff.
Interesting. I'll take a look at it. Thanks. And ideally, the whole goal is once you do the conversion, you don't need to be doing it on the fly, right? So if one's faster than the other, I guess it would hurt you the first time you're processing 100,000 images. But once you're done with that, then hopefully you're done with that.
Currently we're doing it on the fly.
Oh, you're doing it on the fly.
And
awesome.
we're structuring to do it when the user gets the...
When they hit the page, you resize it and optimize it for them?
It's a thing on a kind of content management system where you they upload your images first, and then you deliver it to the customer. And recently we're building it and the images are transformed when the user uploads the images, not when we deliver it to the customer.
So it's a little faster then, because they're already built. Nice. Cool.
No other questions?
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
So, there's another tool, Moz said JPEG. What's JPEG?
Moz JPEG, yeah. Mozilla's JPEG. Yes.
With that.
So, and that's great because it's compatible with JPEG, right?
Yeah.
So it works anywhere that JPEG
works. For PNG. So SSIM is also for PNG or just for JPEG?
I think it's a comparison tool. So I think it works with any type of. Okay. And there's another format, there's JPEG XL that they're working on right now, and there's some neat stuff in that that's improving the compression yet again. Okay. And then there's a whole nother image format, just like WebP is based on VP8 video. There's a new video codec called AV1, which is like a quarter the size of VP8. So we're gonna have the videos are same quality, but a quarter of the size. They're building an image format based on that. It's gonna be AV, I forget what the last letter is, but it's basically it is a standard and all of the browsers have agreed to support it at some point. So that's another format that's coming down the pipeline that'll even be smaller and faster than WebP. So there's still progress happening with these things. And I'm sure that will always be the case, right? After JPEG XL and AV whatever, there'll be another format, right? We're just gonna keep continuing better compression for the same quality images. Yeah.
Do you have some recommendations for the dimension of the images because of high DPI interfaces and how much?
That's a
2 times bigger, 4 times bigger?
So that's a good question. There's a blog post that just came out recently where they actually they did some of the math for the person with the best vision ever recorded. It was like 2015 or 25, like I don't remember, or 520. I don't remember how you say it, like instead of 2020 vision. And they did the math and they found that they wouldn't see any difference between a 2x and a 3x image.
Okay.
So like 2x is generally good enough even on a 4x, 3x, 4x DPI device. The human eye just can't see it once it's a 3x image. Even the human being with the best recorded eyesight ever would not be able to see the difference. So you can build a 3x image, but it's just going to be a lot larger and no one's really going to see the benefits. So I think 2x is probably as big as you want to go. Yeah.
And the recommendations for zooming on mobile devices?
Zooming. Like once you have the image and you see the bigger image.
Yeah.
So that's where it gets tricky, because if you downloaded the low quality version, like then you want to download a bigger quality so it looks good. That's one option, or you could have it be a little more pixelated. There was a native app I was testing a few years ago that had a small, medium, and large, and they just downloaded all three whenever there was one request. So they showed the small one, but they had the medium and the large already cached. That's not the right way to do it. Like if you're going to do that, just download the large and serve it to everybody. It just sort of depends on what your use case is, right? So if it's for like an e-commerce site, you might want to just download a bigger version. Yeah.
I didn't get how you were implementing the different sizes of one image.
Yes.
You said you had one image with different sizes.
Yes.
How do you tell it?
You set you
use a source set?
you can yeah you source set it. You can set the max width. So you say for a screen of this width serve this image, for a screen of this size serve the next larger image, and then all the way down. And then you could do the same thing with WebP. So you could have, and there are actually tools that will insert that into your code, right? You just say, here's the image, here are the sizes, and it'll generate all of the different source sets for you. Because otherwise, if you have 100 images and you have WebP and JPEG, you could end up with your HTML documents get really, really large.
Do you have a comparison of the HTML code and the space saved on the image? Because if you have 100 entries there.
Yeah, so I was showing 25 kilobytes different size in the images. And so you could imagine if you had 20 different images, maybe 50 characters, you're still under a kilobyte. So your 24K savings, at least. So I would think the savings it's more text. The text obviously is more compressible than the image. I think it's still worth it. And you probably don't need 20 images. You could probably get away with 4 or 5. Look at your analytics, see what screen sizes are in your website, and then build images for those sizes. Cool.